Hello, lovely people, and welcome to another episode of Show Your Tune. This week we have Mark from Spain, Ibiza, and his car Mazda 323F. It's an old car. We're gonna see some pictures, and here we have some raw measurements. So it's not a full tune, it's another one with just raw measurements, and he's seeking for some advice. So he has Mazda 323, old car. He says sounded okay for OM in the 90s, but wanted something different. So he made some speaker boxes for mid-range and tweets. That replaced the air vents in the dashboard. Still testing, blah, blah, blah. He has some problems. We're gonna have a look at those. And so the drivers are a focal access three-way. It's like 200 pounds, maybe 180 pounds in the UK. Cheapest three-way set you can find on the market, and a Blaupunkt Velocity 15-inch subwoofer in a tiny small sealed box. And he says that he has JBL GTO 6000 amps, so that's for as a monoblock for the sub, and a Helix M6 running the whole front end. And for DSP we have Helix DSP Pro Mark II. So let's have a look at the actual pictures. So this is the mini bass in the door install. He has 3D printed pods. And because here, that's metal. Okay, yeah, so I can see metal inside. Basically, what you want to make sure is whenever you're putting a speaker ring or actually mounting speakers to the door panel, you have to make sure that that door panel is somehow bolted to the actual sheet metal, or like with rings or whatever, because if you have a speaker only in the door panel, it's not gonna be fun because it's gonna be like flapping all over the place. It's very, very soft. So I can see here probably it's like glued in. Okay, so this is the mid bass. What else we have? Okay, so this is a view from the side, so we can see old and goody car. It looks kind of cool with these stripes. And we have mid bass in the doors, and what he has here is these small enclosures. So I would assume it's like maybe 2-3 liter enclosures, and they house tweeter and mid-range. And we can see the driver's side, it's very close to you, actually extremely close to you. And the passenger side, so they're mounted like symmetrically. So the passenger side, we can see that they're quite off axis, like maybe 70 degrees, 70, 80 degrees off axis. So we would expect not to have the very top end from the tweeter. And since they are in small sealed enclosures, we would expect again to have a peak in the lower mid-range for the mid-range drivers. And yeah, that's another side. Yeah, that's another view. And it looks cool. It looks very different. And I wanted to jump into this. So just for other people who send me emails, I do have your emails. I will go through them. It's just I have now kind of a backlog, and this looked very, very cool. I just wanted to have a look at these, how they actually measure in these positions, because it's a very unusual place for mid-range and tweets, because it's like very, very forward. Usually you have a tweeter somewhere like deep in the corner, and the mid-range either on the pillar or in the dash, but here you have them facing very, very pulled forward. And yeah, that's all the picture. So let's have a look at the actual measurements. Let's remove everything. Let's start with the tweeters. So we have left tweeter and right tweeter. So the good thing about this is that the response is kind of similar for both left and right. They are playing all the way up to 20. However, so left one is the driver's side, and the right one is the passenger side. So this one, the right one, is going to be this one on the passenger that is off axis. Yeah, and you can see it does play high, which is good, but both of them have a massive peak here. So there could be a few reasons for it. And I would assume they're crossed, they're not raw. I would assume they're crossed like probably at 3K from looking at this. But they have this massive peak. So one of the things, it might have to do something with the actual enclosure, maybe. That it kind of, but no, I'm not sure. Let's have a look at the actual tweeters. He sent me some sheets. Tweeter. So this is this tweeter. If you can see, this extremely sensitive, 94 dB sensitivity, which is cool. And here in this graph, we can see the response. It has a rising response from 15 to 20. So this is a metal dome cone aluminium. Yeah, aluminium. So for metal dome tweeters, you have this cone breakup at about 20K or above, and it kind of sometimes it peaks into the audible range. So this is exactly what we see here. We don't have this peak, however, they start to drop off 1, 2, 3 from like 4K. They drop off, so they don't play that low. And yeah, we see exactly that from like 3 4K they're dropping off. Another thing is, it doesn't, here this sheet doesn't mention any FS. However, we can see the FS from the impedance graph. So on the impedance graph we see this, the red line, and it has a small peak at about 3K. So this tweet has an FS of 3K, and to cross it low, it would be risky and impossible. So this tweeter probably best would be crossed at about 5K, which is really, really high. However, when you have 3-inch mids, just literally next to it, if they play high, it wouldn't be a problem. But what I would suggest you to do, to cross these tweets very, very high, like about 5K. So if this a raw response, let's just take one for example, RTA, oh, not RTA, oh, EQ. Okay, I was not prepared for this, so apologies. I'm preparing now. There we go. Let's add some target, base limited. Actually, we need to cross at about 5K. Let's drop it down. Target 24 dB. There we go. That's our target. We're gonna drop it down to what, 65? Yeah, a bit higher even than that. So this is, which one's the left one? It's a very high cancellation, but probably you're not going to hear this. It's not an issue at all. So if these tweets are crossed like 3K, cross them at 4K, then this will go a bit down. And what you need to do is just need to bring this, all of this down quite a lot. Actually, let's try this. Let's apply very high smoothing just for fun. And let's add PK. Wow, we have 4.5K. 4.5K Q wide. Let's do 1Q, very wide, because we need to bring down all of this peak. And let's bring it down 15 dB. A bit too much. 10. Yeah, something like that. Another, so yeah, one EQ band will bring all that peak down, all the harshness, because now without anything they will sound extremely, extremely harsh, having this massive peak at 4.5K. So one EQ band brings this down, and then the crossover, a bit higher crossover. I don't think we can we do this? Very, very shallow. Bezel, Butterworth 1. 4. Yeah, so something like this, just bring it a bit down and another band of EQ to knock it down, and you will be fine. But yeah, these tweets needs taming. You need to remove all of this massive peak by 10 dB. Other option would be aim them more towards the listener, so you can bring this top end a bit up, maybe like 5 dBs or so, and then you wouldn't have to cut that much. But anyway, these tweets will have to be crossed very, very high. So make sure that the electrical crossover is close to 5K. Very, very high. Oh, another thing that I noticed as well with his raw measurements. So these measurements are done very nice, more than 100 averages, RTA 148. However, these bars, and I did mention this before, if you go to RTA, in settings, appearance, use bars on RTA, just untick this and you're going to have lines instead of bars. So just for that, I'm just applying 24th smoothing, so that just remove those bars, it would look a bit nicer. But yeah, these needs taming. Now let's have a look at the mid-range, left mid-range and right mid-range. Yeah, so for both of these, if we cross the tweeters at close to 5K, which is here, we need the mid-range to play all the way up to 10K, and they do that. So yeah, you can cross these very, very high at about 5K acoustically, and this will be like, you can follow this target. Now at the bottom end, we have from the right mid-range, we can see a typical boost in the lower mid-range because of the driver in a small sealed enclosure. And if you have a look at the left mid-range, you have all of this. So this, I would assume, is going to be floor noise because, well, if you have a look at the picture, they're extremely, extremely close to you. So I would assume when he did the measurement, he had to reduce the level quite a lot for them not to shout, because it's literally just like 1 meter away. So I think the floor noise kind of creeped in this measurement. And yeah, so the right, it looks like it has a lot of reflections, a lot of dips and peaks. It's not a very nice response, and this looks like potential comb filtering, maybe due to reflection from the glass, because these mid-ranges, they are, let me find them. Yeah, so they're 3-inch mid-range, QTS 5.6, FS 110, so they could play from like 200 or so, which is not a problem at all. But these are 3-inch drivers, and 3-inch drivers, here you can see this. So this is this table basically shows you when a driver starts to beam. So if we take, for example, a 6.5 mid-bass driver, it starts to beam like above 1K and plays omnidirectionally in all directions. You see the top one in all directions up to like 600-700 hertz. And for a 3-inch driver, the one that he has, it plays omnidirectionally up to 1.1K and higher. So it plays in all directions the same. And I would imagine what's happening in his setup is you have reflections from, because up to 1K it plays omnidirectionally, like up to here, and all of these dips and potentially these ones as well, higher in the range as well, might be caused from reflections from the side window or even the front. That's my theory. If we have a look at the left mid-range, this one, it has a similar response, all jaggedy. It plays all the way up to 10K. However, you see this massive hole at about 800. Where is it? 890, at about 890 hertz. Massive hole. Now the question is, why? If we have a look at this, it's a wavelength calculator. I use it quite a lot. Let's put 890 hertz. The wavelength of 890 is 38 centimeters, which is just over 1 foot. Whereas for my American friends, 1.2 feet. And I would imagine that since up to 1K, this driver is omnidirectionally, yeah? So it plays in all directions. So this could potentially be a cancellation coming from the front window, because one wave is coming to you directly, and the other one, since it's playing omnidirectionally, goes back to the window, bounces back, and comes to you out of phase at that frequency. And all the other cancellations might be because of bouncing from this glass and coming to you. That is my theory. And for people who know these things better or have a better idea, please comment under this video. But I think this is caused by this. If what I would suggest you to do, if you have the ability to remove like this pod, just to like, I don't know if it's glued or bolted on or whatever, but if you have the ability to remove it and push it more towards the glass, just temporary, and measure again, and just see if with this pod being much closer to the glass, if this cancellation would move higher or lower in frequency, because I would imagine it would go a bit high in frequency, maybe, because this, again, this is just a theory. But if we ignore this, so when you're going to tune this dip, you just ignore it. You cannot do pretty much anything about it. And even RAW, let's have a look. If you do with RAW EQ, so let me very quickly choose a target of what, 65, something like that, and let's see what RAW does from 220 all the way up to 10K. Let's see what it does. Match response to target. Yeah, so it doesn't touch this dip at all. So if you're going to be EQing, you have loads of EQ bands. You can apply some smoothing for this area because it's very, very jaggedy. You don't have to like EQ with the 1/24th, but like this dip, don't push it, because it's a cancellation, so it's not gonna sound good. Just leave it as it is. You can EQ the rest, but this dip, just leave it as it is, don't touch it. But yeah, this peak will need to bring down by like close to 10 dB. This one as well, 10 dB, but you can tune something like this. It depends if you want to touch these, because these like dips and peaks probably not going to be very, very audible. But yeah, so again, acoustical crossover about 5K, I would suggest, between the mids and tweets. Now let's have a look at the mid bass. So left mid bass is the driver side, which should have the null. And lo and behold, there's a null, 157, a massive hole. Apart from that, very good extension, all the way up to like 50. There's another hole here, and it plays quite high, nicely up to like 500. So for this left mid bass, you can cross it 250, even like probably 300, but like about 250-ish. Acoustical crossover into the mids would be perfect for the mid range. Cross that 250, because this peak will need to be removed as well. And so that's the left one with one hole, and this is the right one, which surprisingly has a hole as well. So I don't see this a lot on the passenger side. It's mostly on the driver side only, but passenger side has exactly the same thing. And when you have both drivers with holes in this region, you are not gonna have much of the kick and snap, because it lives in this area, so it's not gonna be good. The only other option that you have is, it's an old car, how much space do you have in the kicks? Or another thing, maybe try under seats, because with these it's far from ideal. And the right one plays again up to 400, So it can be crossed about 250. So yeah, like 220, 250 acoustically between mid bass and mid range, and 5K between mid range and tweeter. But because of these issues, I would seriously suggest you to look at other options in somewhere else installing your drivers. This is not the best. So under the seats maybe, but I doubt there's going to be space under the seats. Kicks probably no space as well. Yeah, or just live with it. I don't know. Front sub, it's a bit too high for a front sub to play up to 160. It's not gonna be good. Or well, if you're not aiming for like proper like staging and stuff, you could try a front subwoofer covering this range, but then you won't need the mid bass and the doors at all, because this is like, if it would be only one door, it wouldn't be that massive an issue, but like with both doors having problems here, it's not very nice. Okay, let's have a look at the low end. So on the low end, they extend down to 50. These mid bass drivers access, they have, oh, that's the mid range. Where is it? This one, mid bass. FS of 67 to close to 70, and QTS 0.8. Okay, so they're dropping off a cliff, but they still have a nice response, surprisingly. So FS is 80 and they play low. Okay, which is nice. Good. Let's have a look at the subwoofer. But again, you should cross it about like 70, close to FS. Let's have a look at the subwoofer. So subwoofer is the 15-inch in very small sealed enclosure. And yes, you can see that it is in a very small, way too small, like 15-inch sub that peaks at 50 hertz. It's way, way too small. So either port it to have a bit more low end, or you need like a massive, massive enclosure, or just to choose a different subwoofer, because with this, like EQ, let's have a look at this. Let's remove the target. Yeah, the good thing is you can cross it quite high. It does have a cancellation here about 77, which is going to be due to the length of the car, and you cannot do much. But this is going to be your crossover region with the mid bass in the doors, somewhere there like 70-ish. The problem with this subwoofer is that it doesn't play low at all. So you can see that it has a massive peak, and like if you wanted to play down to 30, you're gonna lose like a lot of headroom. However, this is a 15-inch, which I imagine it would have quite a lot of like headroom and X-Max. So what you could potentially do is, let me try something. Let's cross it like Butterworth. I like Butterworth for, oh, not this one. I like Butterworth for crossovers. Let's cross it at 90 to start with. Much steeper. No. Bezel 8. No, Butterworth. Let's try Butterworth 6. Yeah, even more probably. 80. 70. Yeah, something like this. So one peak, one EQ band just to remove this little thing, maybe. And what you could do is, let's do it very quickly manually. So PK, this one, 50 hertz. Let's remove, let's go for -10 to start with. Q of 3, 4, 5, 4. Yeah, so like this, just remove that peak. So Q of 40. I put 40. Nah, a bit less, -6, something like this. So you remove some of that peak from the top. Actually, let me leave this one on. Yeah, so you remove this peak, and what you can do, because Helix has EQ down to 20, so if you take like even like 30, and with a Q of like 6, boost the heck out of it. Or it doesn't boost. +6. It doesn't do much, no? 35, 32. Yeah, so even 35. So with this, you could, like with that boost, because you do have mechanical headroom in the system, because 15-inch has a lot of cone area and a lot of X-Max, so even a small sealed enclosure, that's exactly what people do in home audio when they have subwoofers in small, very small enclosures, and they DSP it. They basically boost like even plus 10 dB. And let's add 10, because you can, and then you would have extension, lower end extension down to like 32. So instead of that, you would have this. So with your particular sub, I would imagine don't be scared to boost the bottom end. With small subs, I wouldn't recommend that because you would reach X max very fast and they're gonna bottom out. But if you have like mechanical headroom, just do that, boost it, and that way you're gonna have some more bottom end out of a small enclosure. Now bear in mind that you will need a lot of power, so I'm not sure how much the sub is rated and how much generate measurements, how much the sub is rated and how much you would have on the amplifier power wise. But like you could have something like this. From this you could have this, and you could cross it at about like 70 hertz into the mid range, mid bass. Yeah, boost the bottom end for that. But as you did mention yourself, this is like a test for you, and with this test, play with, let's add some smoothing just for fun. Yeah, play with mid-range pods. Tweeters, you can try to aim them tiny bit so you could have a bit more top end, but again this peak will need to go down, and for this one just play with the distance. Try to remove it and put it there, because otherwise you cannot do anything. But again, with the doors, again, if you cannot put the drivers, the only option for you with the mid bass to improve the mid bass is to put them somewhere else, because this is physical cancellations due to the cabin and you cannot do anything about it. So if you want something else, think about different locations. Yeah. But in general, I just want to check out because it's a very, very cool looking system, totally different. And how should I put it? No offense, but this is the reason why you don't see these kinds of installs in the cars, because they have a lot of problems. And you can see like tweeters have problems, maybe different tweeters would play a bit differently, but the main problem for you is not the actual tweeters. The main problem for you is this, like 1K dip, massive dip, and a lot of, like, I want to say com filtering or something in the upper mid-range area. But yeah, play with your stuff. If you can, remove these pods, push them, measure again, try different things, and yeah, best of luck with the future tuning. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.